few weeks ago, Joshua and Faith and I had dinner so that I could meet Faith and so that I could catch up with Joshua since I came a little bit late to the wedding party. And so I wanted to get to know them a little bit and their relationship together. They're telling me about their time dating. And Joshua being from Lafayette, Faith being from Dallas, they at times were apart and wanted to see each other. And so they let me know that they decided to meet up in Shreveport. Now, they did not ask me about this, because if they would have asked me about this, I would have let them know that that was not a good idea. But they found out before too long that there's really not a whole lot to do in Shreveport. And so they ended up in the parking lot of a Baptist church watching Ratatouille on his phone. A wonderful date indeed. And so, lest I simply open up a can for a homily and give you one that I've given several times before, I figured that's a good way to go. And so I'm going to use 3 things from that movie to structure this wedding homily. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's been many years since I've seen it, but I saw it one time. It's the story of a garbage boy at a very fancy Parisian restaurant who becomes a chef thanks to the help of a rat in a restaurant who knows how to cook. And so the rat will sit on his head underneath his hat and pull his hair to help him to know what to do and how much of this to put in. And he becomes this cook. So the rat's name is Remy, and the boy's name is Linguini. And so Remy helps Linguini to live out his maybe his dream, I guess, of being a good chef. And so as they're working together, the important point in this relationship is trust, right? Linguini has to trust Remy to tell him the right things to do. Remy has to trust Linguini that he's going to actually do what he needs him to do so that the food turns out delicious and not tasting like garbage from the guy who was bringing out the garbage. And so trust is the building block of their relationship. Joshua and Faith, you are entering tonight into a lifelong partnership. You are going to rely on each other constantly. When one is weak, the other is going to be strong. When one is uncertain, the other one will be confident. I've seen this in married couples over and over again. And so you are going to need to trust. Right? Trust has to be the building block of your relationship. First of all, trust in God. Right? You came here tonight. You could have gotten married any number of places, but you came here to be married in the presence of God along with your family and friends. And so, first of all, you are to trust God. And in trusting God, you will then be able to trust one another. And you know this already, right? The gospel that we heard today, Joshua told me that I could choose anyone I wanted to, but they chose this one only because it resonated with us as we prioritize building strong foundational elements in our relationship early on. So I didn't really have a choice. I had to read that gospel. He was kind enough to make me feel like I might have had a choice. But listening to God's word, right, is building on that solid foundation, right? Building on the rock who is Christ himself. And so if you listen to God's word, you will build upon that solid rock to build the foundation of your house, the foundation of the new home that you enter into today. The second point that I want to hit on comes from a quote from the movie. Now, I didn't watch the movie. I watched it many years ago. One time, I Googled some quotes from the movie, right? But this one was good. This one said, "Always do something unexpected." Right? A good chef knows the culinary rules. He knows what spices go well with what meat or fish. He knows how to mix and match and do all these things, right? He learns a lot from his parents, perhaps, or in school. But a true great chef is able to put his own twist on it. And a lot of times, if you go to a fancy restaurant and you read the description, you'll say, oh, why would they do that? But then you eat it and you say, ooh, that was a good touch. Right? They put something unexpected in it, and it makes it simply delicious. And so I would like to make a proposal to you as to what the unexpected should be in your life, in your marriage. The unexpected that you should always add to your marriage is that you ought to live the gospel radically. You ought to be holy. That's a little twist on things that people don't really expect these days. And I propose that that is what would make your marriage a little different, right? Something spectacular. It's out of the ordinary, it's unexpected. And the first reading that you chose speaks of this. Tobiah and Sarah, if we know the story, Sarah had been married 7 times before, and all of her husbands prior to this had dropped dead the night of the wedding. Now, how she was able to get to 8 or 7 or 6 or 5, I'm not really sure, but she did. And so Tobiah and Sarah get married, and they rise from their bed on their wedding night to pray. Not going to go into detail, but if we think about that, that is amazing. That is an incredible display of faith. They rise from bed to go and to pray, to ask God for his mercy. Out of piety, right? Asking the Lord to have mercy on them. And so you chose this reading and this gospel, and that choice shows that you set your relationship firmly on the foundation of Christ, which is, again, unexpected in our world and our culture. Not a whole lot of people do that. So when you do it, you're a witness to others. And these people here tonight are here because they notice that. Well, some are here because they're related to you and they have to be, but others, they're here because they notice that, right? They see it in you. And so continue every day of your married life to do this. To do and to add something unexpected, that holiness. This will give amazing flavor to your life. It will never be dull. It will never be boring. And it will give flavor to the life of all that you encounter. The third little tip that I would give is also a quote from the movie. It says, anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great. And I think that ties nicely with the second one, right? When I'm cooking, I'm going to follow the recipe. I'm afraid to mess it up. A truly great cook is going to go off of the recipe and throw something in that is a little unorthodox, but makes it turn out great. And so perhaps we can rewrite this little quote. Anyone can live, but only the fearless can be great. Anyone can live, but only the fearless can be saints. Only the fearless can be saints. You, Joshua and Faith, are called not just to live an ordinary old married life, but you are called to be great. You're called to help one another and the children that you will raise up to be saints. Right? That is what the sacrament of marriage is all about, to help one another and your offspring to get to heaven. Anyone who gets to heaven is a saint. So if we could make a little equation, that means your goal in marriage is to make one another saints. So how can you be fearless in the midst of a world that is filled with really a lot of things of which we could be afraid? This is a pretty easy answer. One word, love. Love. St. John says that perfect love casts out fear. And St. John also says that God is love. So if you have love, if you have God in your relationship, if you stay close to him, you stay close to love. If you stay close to love, you won't be fearful. And if you are fearless, then you will be great, right? You will be saints. In the second reading, we have an example of someone who was overcome with love. and because of that was absolutely fearless. St. Paul, as you know, was shipwrecked several times. He was beaten, he was imprisoned, he had the whole rap sheet, and yet he kept on proclaiming the gospel. He kept on doing this. He could have given up, and had he not encountered the risen Lord, he probably would have. But he had such a profound encounter of Christ risen from the dead that he couldn't help but keep proclaiming the gospel until eventually he was killed for it. That was the only way to keep him quiet, to kill him. And so he shows us that it's possible to be overcome with this love, to be fearless, and to be a great saint. And he encourages us to do the same. In that reading, he says, "Brothers and sisters, I, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to live in a manner worthy of the call you have received, bearing with one another through love, striving to preserve the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." What Paul is saying is, I urge you to live the life I lived, to be overcome by the love of Christ, so that you might be fearless and that you might become a great saint. And so encounter the risen Lord regularly through your prayer, right? Through your attendance at church. Encounter love. If you do this, then you will truly live, you will be fearless, and you will be great. And so if you live by these three principles, perhaps rewatch the movie from time to time, then you will trust God, right? If you trust God each and every day and trust each other, if you always add something a little bit unexpected to your life, that holiness, and if you are fearless so as to be great saints, then you will experience what we prayed together with you in the responsorial psalm, and you will show the world that the earth is indeed full of the goodness of the Lord.